Meriwether Lewis allegedly shot himself twice with a muzzle-loading pistol. After leading the famous expedition to map out the Louisiana Territory, Meriwether Lewis had been assigned the task of writing the exhaustive final report, as well as governorship of the Louisiana Territory. Thomas Jefferson apparently had the bad habit of assuming that the people around him could just write a book in an afternoon if they felt like it, the way he could, so the added responsibility was intended as a reward, but for Meriwether Lewis, who was already known as a stressed and unstable alcoholic, it was anything but. Lewis had watched the men around him reintegrate into society without much of a problem, taking their governorships and finding wives. Lewis, in his journals, described himself as a rusty, musty old bachelor at the age of 32. The way governorship worked back then was that the appointed governor would cover expenses out of their own pocket, then submit the receipts for reimbursement. Lewis saw his fellow governors doing this successfully as well, but when he submitted his own reimbursement requests, Congress rejected so many of them that he found himself on the brink of bankruptcy. Lewis was traveling to Washington to finalize his book and to discuss his finances face-to-face with the government accountants when he died. He'd originally planned on traveling by water, but at some point changed his plans to travel over land to the Natchez Trace. On September 11th, he writes his last will and testament and sends a letter to Clark. Over the next 4 days, the crew of the riverboat reports that he attempted a self-unaliving but was restrained. The details of the incident have been lost to time. When he arrives at his port, the governor places him under house arrest, describing him as deranged and clearly poisoned by a combination of whiskey and laudanum. After 2 weeks of a forced dry out, Lewis writes a letter to President Madison, again proclaiming his innocence, but the scribbled and partially incoherent nature of the letter is significant. A month before his death, Lewis begins drinking again. During a river crossing, some horses are lost, so Lewis's companions stay behind, and he checks into a hotel alone. Just after midnight, the proprietor's wife hears a shot. The area of the Natchez Trace is well known for banditry, and her husband is away, so sensibly she stays indoors. A few moments later, there's another shot, and sometime after that, Lewis drags himself up to her door, then under a tree, and then back to bed. When his servant arrives, Lewis shows him his wounds and says, "I've done the business," and then complains about how long it takes to die before requesting water. He takes a drink and then expires from one pistol ball to the gut and another to the head. There are some more details that make me fairly certain Meriwether Lewis was the hand that dealt this, but I can't describe them here. Anytime you have a death under unusual circumstances with no note or witnesses, theories are going to abound. You're going to find experts, and I mean real experts, arguing for hours over who killed Meriwether Lewis, but not one of the people who was a near witness to his death has ever questioned it.